Welcome to the iRoofing training tutorial. My name is Kyle, I'm the lead trainer here at iRoofing, and I'm going to be taking you through the entire application today. Today we'll begin by tapping on the measurement button where it says measure your roof. Then we're going to hit sketch my roof. And then we'll tap on our search bar at the bottom. After we have found the property, we want to begin by aligning the house on the grid that you see on your screen. And if the house is not aligned correctly, we would like to use two fingers to rotate the image and align one of the corners of your grid with one of the corners of your roof. From there, we will hit the measure button in the bottom right corner to begin our measurement. So to begin our measurement, we'll first take our crosshair, zoom in a little bit closer by spreading two fingers apart on the screen. We want to move our crosshair over to the top of the ridge on the center of the roof. And we want the line for our crosshair to be right on the outside of our rakes up at the top. We will then hit the marker button, which is directly above your measure button in the bottom right corner, or in the exact opposite corner of the screen. When you hit that button, you'll see a red dot appear underneath your crosshair. From here, we'll work our way down this ridge until we get to the rakes on the opposite side. And I want the line that's above my crosshair to remain highlighted red, which lets me know that I'm aligned with my point on the other end of this ridge. Then I'll hit the marker button here to place down my next dot. And now I should have a line between these 2 points with the measurement for that ridge. Next, we will go down the rake towards the back of the house and stop where the rake and the valley meet for our dormer on the back. Place down our next point here. From there, we're going up the valley and onto the back of this ridge. Place down our next marker here. Then back down the opposite valley until we line up with our point at the bottom of the valley on the other end of the roof. Place down a marker there. And then from here, we're going up this eave until we reach the rake on the opposite corner. Place a marker there. And then finally, we're going over to our right, back to the original dot that we started from. And you'll notice that when you bring your crosshair near that point and let go, it should automatically pull itself into place on top of that dot. The application does that to prevent us from creating an extra dot next to that one instead of using the one that we already have there. Once we hit the marker button on that point, that's going to complete the first area of the roof. Now for our next area, we'll begin from the back of the ridge on the gable that's at the back. We're going to hit the marker button on that point to let the app know that that dot will be a part of the next area. Then we're going over to our left, across this ridge, until we reach the rakes on the opposite end. And we'll place our marker here. Now I need to go down the rake and towards the eave on the side. Place a marker there. Then over to my right, across the eave, to place a marker at the bottom of the valley. And that will complete that area of the roof. Now for our next area, I want to begin at the end of the ridge on the gable. Now we're going up the rake to the eave on the opposite side. Place a marker there. Then up the eave to the bottom of the valley to place a marker here. And then finally, up the valley to the back of the ridge, place a marker there, and that will shade in that area of the roof. Now for the next area, we'll begin at the end of the ridge, up at the top of the screen. We're going over to our right, down the rake and onto the eave along the front. Then across the eave, and I can see that part of the roof on the front is partially covered up by this tree here. So in order to get a better view of the roof, I want to take a look at the property from the street view. I can tap on Street View, and now I can view a Google Street View of the property. When I look over to my left, I can see that the roof that we're measuring is right here. Now from looking at my street view, I can tell that the eave actually kind of cuts back a little bit. So once I hit the back arrow on the bottom left corner, now I know that once I get towards where the front door is, I need to place down a marker here, then go to my left a bit, place down another marker there, then back up the eave over to the next rake, and then up the rake and back over to the ridge. Now after completing each of my areas of the roof, before I can move on and generate a report, I also need to label each of my parts and to set the pitch for each area of the roof. So I'll begin by hitting label parts down in the bottom right corner, right next to your measure button. Then I'll tap on the color for ridge up in the top right corner and tap my finger on each line of the roof that I'd like to label as a ridge. Then I'll do the same thing for the valleys. So I'll tap on both of those valleys after selecting the correct color. Then I also have my rakes, and I can see that one of my labels are actually covering up an entire rake on the front here. We have that line that's 1 foot 10 inches, and because the line is so small, my label is pretty much covering the entire piece of it. So to be able to see that line, I can tap on hide labels down in the bottom left corner of my screen, right between line thickness and my measurement options, and that will allow me to see my lines. Now after selecting the color for rake, I can zoom in a little bit closer, tap on that line to label it, and then zoom back out. Then from here, I can measure the rest of my rakes. Now I need to tap on the color for eave, and do the same thing for all of my eaves. And your goal when you're labeling is to make sure that you don't have any red lines left over. So if you have a red line anywhere on your screen, you have not completed the section yet. Now from here, the last thing we need to do is to set the pitch for the roof. We can do that by first taking a look at the property from the street view. So we want to tap on the measure button in the bottom right hand corner. If we look to the right side, we have our vertical menu, and at the bottom of that vertical menu, we have our street view button. When you tap on Street View, that will open up a Google Street View of the property. I can look over to the left, and I can see the house that we're measuring. If I use the arrows at the bottom of the screen, I can navigate down the street a little bit, look over at the angle between the rakes on the roof, and I can see that with this particular roof, we're looking at a pitch of about a 6/12. Now I'll hit the back arrow in the bottom left corner, tap on pitch at the bottom, select the number 6 over to the right, and then tap my finger within each area of the roof that I would like to set as a 6/12. So this way, if you had a roof with multiple pitches on it, you have the ability to set the pitch for each area of the roof independently. Now from here, I want to hit the report button at the bottom of my screen to generate a report. So we'll hit save. Then from here, we have the option to either save the report to an existing customer by tapping where it says please select the customer, and then finding their name from the drop-down menu. Or we can create a new client by tapping on the plus button where it says add new client. Once we hit OK, that will generate the report for the property. So with this roof, without waste, I came up with a total of 12 squares. If we look directly below our total, you can see that we've also got our waste factor, so we can go with a 10, 15, 18, or 20% waste, which is already calculated for us. If I scroll down to the second page, here I can find my diagram of the roof with each of my lines color-coded based off the labels that I used. Go down to my third page of the report. This will show me the total square feet for each individual area of the roof. And on my last and final page, this will give me the pitch for each area. Then I can hit share in the bottom right corner. This will also give me the option to print this out, email it, or upload it to Dropbox or to Google Drive. Now we're going to go back over to our satellite image. Let's hit the measure button in the bottom right corner again. And now I'll be showing you some advanced tips and tricks. So when you have your crosshair on the screen, if you were to place and hold your finger on any one of your points on the roof, you'll see that point will start flashing green. Now I can manually readjust that dot by hand simply by keeping my finger on that dot and dragging it around. So if I ever place down a point at the wrong spot, all I have to do is place my finger on that dot, drag it where I need it, so this way I don't have to hit the undo button several times. Also, if you tap on delete area over to the right, I can double tap any slope that I have on the roof to remove it. So after tapping delete area, if I tap on an area, it'll start flashing red. Tap on it again, it will remove it. And if I ever delete anything by accident, I can hit the undo button up in the top right corner to bring back that area. And don't forget, when you're done, to turn off delete area by hitting the button again. Next to that, you also have your subtract button. If you tap on subtract, you can now take your crosshair inside of an area that you've already completed, place down points within that area, and anything within those points will be removed from your total square feet. So if you have any skylights, chimneys, or other features on the roof that are taking away from your total squares, you can avoid overquoting your client by subtracting them out. Now down below, we also have a button right next to our report button that says Scale Verify. If we tap on Scale Verify, now we can take any one of our actual measurements from the property and use that to rescale our image. So let's say, for example, that we went out to the job site and we realized that maybe we over-measured the roof a little bit. Maybe the eave along the front that I got 22 feet 10 inches on was actually 22 feet 6 inches. I can tap on that line after tapping on Scale Verify, type in the correct measurement of 22 feet 6 inches, and that's going to scale my picture down based off of that measurement. So this way, I make sure that I'm getting as close to accurate as possible with my numbers. This concludes the measurement portion of the training.